Apocalypse Now is an even better movie than we know because they're all out there snorting coke.
Right.
And Timothy Bottom's on drugs the whole time.
Midlife crises, heart attacks on
Heart
screen,
attacks,
you know,
everything, yeah.
hitting mirrors.
Yeah.
It's a documentary, that film.
Yeah. Try to imagine you're in the jungle, you've got Marlon Brando and Dennis Hopper, and the guy who has to calm them down is Francis Ford Coppola. Like, that in itself, that's like one of those unsolvable math problems from the late 1800s. Like, how do you solve these three variables and make, like, that's like the last guy you would send out to stabilize those two is Francis Ford Coppola.
And it's funny, he wanted to film that film while Vietnam was going on.
Of course.
That was his original idea.
That was their Zoetropes. Their whole idea was to go over there and shoot it during
And
Vietnam.
Lucas was like, "You do it.
Yeah, you go ahead, man.
I'll be here
Yeah.
watching, watching TV."
I'll be here in my very dimly lit room.
Your film taste is extraordinary. When we were talking about what you would show, you sent me a list of films that kind of shocked me. Some, were real life Albert Brooks, not so shocking, but
Well, Albert Brooks is real life. I don't know what. Well, I understand why. I wish a smaller, like oscilloscope films or someone or someone like that would do a re-release of that, and especially in terms of what is going on now, in terms of TV and YouTube and reality shows, how real life just called all of that. He saw every single thing that was coming down the pike towards us, and did it as a funny comedy. But you watch it's actually more sinister and desperate, I think, than Network.
Yeah.
In terms of, does anyone see where we're heading? Because this is going to be really bad in like 20 years.
Yeah. Another title, remember, is Caged.
Holy fuck. Okay, has anyone seen this? It was a movie made in 1950 called Caged. Has anyone ever heard of or seen this film? Anyone? You've seen it? It's on iTunes.
The camera operator.
It's on iTunes. Go home, download it. It is, I can't believe they got away with releasing this movie in 1950. It is the darkest, most
precautionary tale.
And what all it is it is a prequel to every femme fatale in every film noir, where this sweet, innocent girl goes to prison and leaves a man-destroying femme fatale. Like, it is her origin story, and goes through fucking hell. I mean, it is so dark and so violent, and gets away with way more stuff than movies can get away with now. I think.
Yeah.
In terms of where it goes.
Yeah.
And I wish we could have shown that.
You and I were talking briefly about Louis C.K., and Louis is now going to do this Woody Allen film, and I've heard Louis talk about how he can wax poetic about Raging Bull. I've heard him talk a lot about how Raging Bull is.
He's a film buff.
That's what I want to get into.
Yeah.
Who
you should invite him to show the movie that, if you want to. And he told me. I mean, he told me this, and he said this in interviews. The whole key to how he makes movies is Robert Downey's Putney Swope.
Amazing.
That would be fun. That's his key.
That would be fun.
So get him to show Putney Swope, because it's amazing. That's quite an experience watching that movie with him.
Do films have to be smart and ironic for you to love them, or can you?
No, I mean, and a lot of times what's more fun about a movie is when it's not smart and ironic, and it's actually very, very earnest, and then it's the times that change around it.
Yeah.
So I love when stuff like that. I mean, it's the classic. It's the reason that every 20 years Huckleberry Finn gets banned by a completely different group that either say it's totally racist, or it's totally, it hates white people, or it's anti-religion, or it's too pro-religion. Like, there's just, that's to me the sign of a great work, is that I never think, and that's why, especially I think maybe in terms of stand-up comedian, I'm never doing my comedy for the ages. I just do it for the time that it's happening right there. And a lot of people say, in your early albums, you say you're never going to get married, you're never going to have kids. And I'm like, because that's how I felt when I was 26. And it's on tape now forever. It's a little time capsule. And then you see things change as it goes along. You see your opinions change.
Let's talk a little bit about comics as actors, again, to get back to that thing. We discussed really briefly, but I guess I have a theory that I think artists from the world of stand-up comedy per se make extraordinary actors, and I guess I think of it as the level of the nerves of steel, of the ability to do things despite angst and emotion. I'm not saying that you're not angsty and emotional, but what do you think about that theory as stand-up being an interesting training ground for actors?
I think any area where you have to be emphatic and very, very present in what you do, it absolutely helps you as an actor. Because my counter theory is that as many good actors come from stand-up comedy, I think as many actors also come from the world of country music. And that's why you have like Willie Nelson and Dwight Yoakam and Dolly Parton and Chris Christopherson are these amazing film actors.
Yeah, true.
Because they deal with, I mean, country music, whether you like it or not, deals with, I think, the darkest, most rawest shit on the planet. So, you know, when you see that, I think it just makes it easier to translate that on screen.
You're in an interesting world now in your career, and maybe you had done film.
I'm very lucky to be where I am right
you know,
now,
luck is one thing, timing's another thing, but you wouldn't stay there if you didn't have something to offer. And Big Fan was a big step. You had done other films, but Big Fan really put you front and center. Was there any question whether you could act in the sense of a traditional?
I mean, I certainly had a lot of doubts. The only reason I did Big Fan was because the director offered it to me. So I was like, well, if he's offering this to me, he must see something. And he was a guy that, you know, the guy that made Big Fan edited The Onion for years.
Right.
He wrote most of Our Dumb Century.
Right.
And then he wrote Big Fan. That was the first thing he ever wrote.
Did he write it for you?
No. That movie was written a decade before The Wrestler and made the rounds of Hollywood. And everyone at some point was attached to it. Like, to the point where it was, I mean, I remember I just ran into Adam Sandler and he goes, I almost did Big Fan, back when it was called Paul Alfiero. And I just didn't, I thought it was too dark and creepy and it freaked me out.
Is that insulting to hear him say, or?
No, he was very complimentary.
No, I don't mean he was intentionally insulting, but did you feel, oh, I guess I was the 44th choice for that film?
But it's not insulting if that's the reality, though. Like, I mean, I can't sit there and go, I'm fucking Patton Oswalt. You know, like, there's no, you know.
Don't you know?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm a mid-level headliner in smaller rooms. I mean, Jesus Christ. Oh, I'm getting what Philip Seymour Hoffman throws away? Fuck you, Hollywood. Like, I'm happy to have that guy's cast off. Oh my God.
It's on the record now.
That's the shortcut to fucking your career, is going, excuse me, maybe you've seen Dollhouse. I did a pretty good guest star in that. So, yeah, I think I'll be in front of Giamatti on this next thing. No, that's
right.
It's Giamatti, it's John C. Reilly, it's Philip Seymour Hoffman, and then 8 other guys, and then
Patton
me.
Oswalt.
Yeah,
right? we got our man. Yeah.
But it was one of those things where when I heard the genesis of the movie, which was he wrote the script, it went around for years. Everybody was attached. Philip Seymour Hoffman was attached. They're all attached. And then but you know, they wanted to make it more Hollywood, more happy, and he was like, I'm not changing this. So everyone, it just kept falling away.
Not too long ago, you challenged yourself to maybe even do a play. We don't have to go into.
No, I didn't challenge myself. I was offered the play, and then it all collapsed.
Well, there's act. Let's deal with Act One. Right. I want to. I don't want to ambush.
Let me describe it. Ready?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I didn't want to ambush you with this.
No, it's not.
You know, Act One though is you saying I'll do it.
Yeah.
Was that a struggle? Was that a worry? Wow, all these lines I have to memorize.
It was work, man. I mean, theater is work, and it's work every night. And what really frustrated me, though, was because I went out to lunch when it all fell apart, and I was still in town for a week, because I still had to hang around to be fired from the NBC pilot. That was mwah. So I went to lunch with Lily Taylor, and she said, you know what really sucks about this, because she was in the play with me.
Right.
She said, you didn't get to do the fun part of this, which is after the weeks and weeks of rehearsal and the first few weeks of performing, then it all becomes second nature, and you just show up and you do the play, and then you hang out in New York during the day, and like it's this other experience that you just got the shitty.
Was she trying to cheer you up?
No, she was just saying that she was trying, because she was like, this is not. There was a million other things outside of your control that went down here.
Yeah.
But I think she was saying, I don't want this to spoil the theater for you. Like, if you ever get another chance, do it, because if you get through all of this early, and she also said, what certain people seem to forget about this is that the beginning of every play rehearsal, and anyone here who's in the theater knows this, it's always a disaster. It always looks like a mess. It looks like it's impossible. This thing is never going to work. And then, and to quote Shakespeare in Love, the thing just happens. Which, by the way, is a paraphrasing of John Huston when they asked him, like, when you make a movie like The Maltese Falcon, and he goes, the movie just happens. It just, when it works, it just happens, and we don't know how it does, and we try not to talk about it because we don't want it to jinx it so it'll happen again for us. Can you imagine how cool it must have been to, like, be in these films with these directors that they are so open to, hey, let's just, like, if you watch Chinatown, people in that movie, actors with even one line, you can tell that Polanski took the time to go, let's make this a character and not just a vehicle to get our star from point A to point B. So that the little Weasley kid in the records room and the coroner and the secretary that gets pissed, like everyone has a job to do, and because they're trying to populate a world. So that.
Well, what's been lost? Is it the aesthetic, or is it economics and time don't allow that, or?
I think it's that they're paying now so much money for these stars that it's like we better get every frame we can of these people. My friend had a really interesting theory as to why the Raiders of the Lost Ark movies get crappier and crappier looking as they go along. They're still good, but like the first one, there's these exotic locations and these amazing sets. But by the time the third one comes around, Harrison Ford cost $25 million. So we're going to build a set for the castle and not actually go to a castle. Like, we don't have the money to get all this cool stuff in here anymore. So, you know.
I think of Robert Altman, Lionsgate, his office. He would say, yeah, we'll have margaritas and pass a joint around, and you can come in and come out. And you really believe that this was the milieu. And you could see it in the film, or maybe it's an illusion. I mean, do we think these films are more romantic because of that? Is there kind of a...
Well, they're more miraculous that they got done, because once you know what it takes to get a movie done, and you find out that, like, wow, so they were so... Peckinpah was drinking from 8 a.m. and he got the movie done. Like, I've been on movie sets. It's really hard to be drunk on a movie set day after day. Like, that will kill you. I used to do a lot of work with the Farrelly brothers punching up their movies. So one day we took a break and they started waxing rhapsodic about Ben Stiller, how much they loved him, and when we did something about Mary, he was game to do anything, no matter what we threw at him. He goes, we'll try it. Like. No shame, no, like, let's do it. Let's just go nuts. So when they were done, and they went off, and I went to get a coffee, and one of their assistants, this guy called the Mud Man, who's like one of their friends from Providence, and they hire all their friends, and they're all great guys. But so this guy, once the Farrellys leave, he's like, hey man, just Ben Stiller's a dick. That guy, he's horrible. And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, man. Every night when we get done filming, be like, hey man, go out drinking with the crew. We got a lot of booze, we got a lot of Coke. And then Ben would be like, yeah, I got to wake up the next day because I'm shooting the movie. And then I said, well, he probably had a 5 a.m. call time the next day.
Mudman.
And he's trying to be professional. And then Mudman goes, I told him we had Coke. Like, hey,
what
idiot, we would drink all night, and then when the sun came up, we'd do Coke and get him through the day. And then I'm thinking of all of the, I bet you so many failed careers were because there was some actor going, I want to show that I'm regular and I can hang with the crew, and they just got too drunk. And then the director's like, we can't work with that guy. Like, it's the actors that the crew thinks are, and then my man was like, and Matt Dillon and Cameron Diaz were the same way. Like, yeah, they're being professional. What are you talking about? Like,
well, somewhere along the lines, it sounds like being in the thick of production, you began to respect production. It sounds like you respect. I say that because I don't think...
Well, I'll tell you this, nothing changed. I used to be so snotty about films and dismissive about, oh, the crap. But the worst piece of crap that you watch from mainstream Hollywood, people sweated and bled to get that thing out there. And the most awful piece of exploitation crap, people broke their backs to get that made. I've just been on too many movie sets, and I've been in some really bad movies that people worked really hard on. And I saw them really trying to get a vision across. And there's something, so now when I look at movies are so stupidly optimistic, it makes me want to cry, because the people that do, especially when you see someone a director that's made like 8 movies, and they're going to do a 9th, and they've made 8 bad movies. So every one of those movies, they started off like, I care, and they saw it go through the process, and the roulette wheel went against them, and it went wrong. Yeah. And then they just keep showing up to try to, like, there's something so beautiful about that.
But people keep hiring them. I mean, in the 70s, the early 70s was really the dawn of the era of the director, American Zoetrope, Coppola, all the film school brats. You know, now most directors are directors for hire. I mean, on a scientific level. Can you do this? Can you just grab a camera and get a good actor and a good script and say, hey man, let's just shoot the script?
You can, but it has nothing to do with, oh, the system's keeping us down. That whole idea of I just got to get my foot in the door. There's no door anymore. There's just no door. I have a better movie studio on my iPhone than Orson Welles had when he did Citizen Kane. I've got more tools on this thing in my pocket right now. Yeah. It just, but the thing is, now everyone has the internet and Twitter and video games and video on demand, but they still have the same 2 hours. So you have to do something extraordinary to get people's attention. And also, television, I think, has eclipsed film in terms of storytelling and risk-taking and characters. I mean, you get to watch this new breed of early 70s filmmakers for free every night on your TV set right now.